Hello students, welcome to another English class on Unit 5 Globetrotting. And today we have a writing lesson. We're gonna explore the topic of what not to do when driven up the wall. Have you ever been driven up the wall so much that you feel like doing this? I'm sure everyone has had this experience at least once in their life, unless you're an angel, which I bet you are. Next, I'm going to show you an account, which is a story from the perspective of the person that experienced it. And that is exactly what you're going to be writing after today's lesson. So let's look at this model, and it's about someone being driven up the wall. And pay attention to this because afterwards I will be analyzing it and talking about what you can also do in your writing. It was the third day of a marvelous holiday I was having on the island of Penang in Malaysia. The hotel was enormous, which meant the swimming pool was crowded every day. I had learned to get up early and save a sun lounger by leaving my towel on it. After that, I was usually starving, so I enjoyed a delicious breakfast in the hotel restaurant. Later, I'd go down to the pool and enjoy a swim. But on that day, as I approached the sun lounger, I was astonished to see my towel on the floor and a teenage boy on the lounger. I was furious, so I picked up my filthy towel, waved it at him, and said, "What's this?" He replied that it was a towel. I explained that it was my towel, and he just smiled and said, "Maybe the wind blew it off." This boy was driving me up the wall. I shouted so that everyone could hear. It's very rude to steal someone's sun lounger, you know? Then I turned around to leave. But as I turned, I slipped and fell into the pool. Everyone thought it was hilarious, especially the boy on the sun lounger. I just wanted the ground to open up and swallow me. Now let's look at what this person does in the introduction. It was the third day, so this is talking about the time. Marvelous holiday, this is the why. I, that's the character. On the island of Penang, this is the place. The hotel, all right, this is another important place. Swimming pool, yep, this is another important place. And the rest of this here is the situation, talking about how crowded it is and what he or she had to do in order to save a sun lounger. In the second paragraph, this is the body of the account, and it talks about what happened. On that day, as I approached the sun lounger, I was astonished to see my towel on the floor and a teenage boy on the lounger. So this is the first thing that happened. I was furious. I picked up my filthy towel, waved it at him and said, "What's this?" What happened next? He replied it was a towel. I explained that it was my towel, and he just smiled and said, I shouted so that everyone could hear. Then I turned around to leave, but as I turned, I slipped and fell into the pool. So the body is mostly about what is happening. So you just take it step by step. Finally, in the conclusion part, this person talked about what happened at the end and wrote about their reaction or thoughts. Now let's look at the tense that has been used in this essay. Was, had learned, was starving, I would. Okay, so just from the first paragraph itself, you can tell that when you write an account, you need to use the past tense. You can use the simple past tense like the was, or you can also use the past perfect, had learned, or the past continuous, was starving. Also, let's take note of the perspective that an account is written in. I, all in the first person, using I, or if there's more than one person, using we. So make sure that when you are writing your account, you write it from your perspective. Let's also take note of the linking words that has been used here. We have conjunctions like and, we have after that, we have later, on that day. So So then, as I turned, so this person uses conjunctions and uses very simple linking words in order to show the sequence of events. You can use similar ones, or you can use some of the more complex cohesive devices as well. And let's look at how this person makes their writing more interesting. One of the easiest ways to do it is you can use direct speech, like over here. What's this? This is direct speech, and this one as well. Maybe the wind blew it off, and it's very rude to steal. You can also use exclamations like this one. It makes your writing much more interesting. And another one that you can use is questions. The writer also uses a lot of very interesting adjectives to make their writing stand out and more interesting, like marvelous, enormous, crowded, starving, delicious, astonished, teenage, furious, filthy, rude, hilarious. So you can do this as well. Use some very interesting adjectives to describe the stuff in your account. This person also uses expressions and idioms like driving me up the wall, wanted the ground to open up and swallow me. Also take note of the use of adverbs as well as adverbial phrases like every day, early, usually, and this one here, especially the boy on the sun lounger. That concludes the analysis of this essay. Now you can always rewind, take a look at this if you need some inspiration or you need some ideas for your own writing. Right now, I want to focus on vocabulary because a lot of students, they can write, but they always use the same simple words. But English has so many different, very colorful, very interesting words that you should be using in your writing. So let's explore some of them. In the passage, there are examples of strong adjectives. Can you find the one that means very nice? It's this one, right? Marvelous. How about very big? Enormous. How about very hungry? Starving. And very tasty? Delicious. Come on, admit it. Most of the time when students write, they use very simple vocabulary like this. Putting very in front of a plain word just doesn't make it any much better. Isn't it much more interesting if you use words like marvelous, enormous, starving, and delicious rather than very nice, very big, very hungry, very tasty, right? Let's try another one. Can you find the adjective for very surprised? This one, right? Astonished. How about very angry? Furious. How about very dirty? Filthy. Last one. Let's find the adjective for very funny. Hilarious. Now let's try it the other way around. I have 6 adjectives here. Tina had forgotten to bring her gloves and her hands were very cold. What strong adjective can we use to replace very cold? Freezing. We were very tired after walking to the top of the hill. What adjective can we use to replace very tired? Exhausted. Mr. and Mrs. Wright were very pleased to win a holiday to Thailand. What can we use to replace very pleased? Delighted. We wanted to go swimming, but the weather was very bad. So how can we replace very bad? Dreadful. We stayed at a very small cottage in the woods. Let's replace very small. Tiny. I found the cruise down the river very interesting. How do you replace very interesting? Fascinating. I hope that by now you can tell that there is a difference between using a simple adjective with a very in front compared to using a strong adjective. So when you are writing your account, make sure that you use a lot of strong adjectives to make your writing more interesting. Now let's talk about your assignment for today. Your assignment is to write an account, and you will find the questions in your Google Forms. Think about a funny, embarrassing, scary, or annoying experience that you have had and write about it. So you can choose, you want to do a funny or an embarrassing, scary, or annoying experience. You choose one of these emotions that you want to write about. And of course, the one that I shared earlier was about being annoyed. To help you out, let's talk about how you can plan your writing. And here is a sample. In your introduction, describe the setting of the story, just like we did in the example, the time, the place, the weather, and introduce the main characters. In your body, you can have 1 or 2 paragraphs. Write about what the characters did, saw, heard, or said. and especially how they felt. Finally, in your conclusion, talk about what happened in the end and also make a short comment on what happened. To conclude, here are some writing tips for this assignment, writing an account. First, use the first person, which is I or we. Use the past tenses, simple past, past continuous, past perfect. Use linking words. Make things interesting by using direct speech, questions, or exclamations. Use a variety of adjectives, adverbs, adverbial phrases, like for example, suddenly, fortunately, to my surprise, and expressions or idioms. I jumped out of my skin, my heart was in my mouth. We've looked at examples of all of these in the example passage, so if you need to, you can always rewind and go back, take a look at the example. You can also go back to the previous lessons where I covered a lot of the grammar and the expressions and vocabulary that you can use for your account as well. So I guess you are now ready to write a very good account, and I look forward to reading what you have to write. Next up, let's go to Morocco. Check out the turquoise walls and flower pots. Isn't that a very beautiful place that you want to go to? But we have a COVID pandemic, so we can go there virtually in our next lesson.